end Boots' career before it started.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
You fucked him up.
I would have knocked him the fuck out. And it's the reason why
they
went the other way. Stop playing with me.
Thank you.
Stop playing with me. Niggas, real boxing motherfuckers know why they went the other way. He wasn't ready yet. He needed a couple of more fights, they said. Stop playing. Y'all be
Come on, bro. What I'm talking about. We already said
that's
that.
Right. That's right.
But I don't know.
It ain't his time. Brian
that's
said
right.
the same thing. It ain't his time yet.
And I be trying to be nice because I support the young fella and all that. And he black and shit. I want to see him succeed.
That's my thing.
Niggas can't come up to me and do the same shit that they can do with other niggas. Niggas don't do that with me. I would slap the piss out of niggas' face. Niggas know who to play with.
But that was also what I'm saying. That his career is already ended.
Niggas don't even really be saying my name. They be like, oh, I'm with everybody. I'm on everybody. I will stop everybody. Niggas say my name. Niggas say I knocked Terence Crawford out, nigga.
You ain't regular, Terence. We know that. You ain't regular. You ain't regular.
See?
Well, I know me and Wallow tried you, nigga.
We won. We won,
nigga.
We won. I know martial arts. Let's change the sport. We can change the sport. And we're going to see what you're going to do then. I'm a martial artist. So I don't count if you knock me out. That shit don't count. It don't count. I got 13 belts. It don't matter if you knock me out.
Terence Crawford just threw a grenade into the boxing world, and somehow the entire sport is acting like they cannot smell the smoke yet. But here is the real question nobody can avoid: is Crawford actually tempting Boots Ennis into a fight he secretly wants? And if Boots wins, will he really call him out live in front of the boxing world?
What do you think about that chatter about them actually if they ever were to fight?
Crawford is a man, he showed it, throughout his career, and then, moving up to super middleweight and did what he did with Canelo, showed that he's, the best in the world, one of the best of all times. He doesn't need to prove anything else, man.
Terence Crawford against Jaron Ennis, for me, is the best fight in American boxing. But it needs to be a payday for Crawford that would get him interested, because Crawford knows how good Boots is. And I'm not saying that Crawford thinks he's going to lose to Boots, but he knows that is a real fight. But for me, Boots is the new Crawford. We've just got to go out and get the fights to show how great he is.
Everybody in boxing says they want the biggest fights until the contract finally lands on the table. That is usually the moment when promoters suddenly forget everything. Managers start talking in riddles like they are protecting hidden treasure maps, and fans explode across the internet with the emotional control of a broken vending machine.
You would have stopped Boots Ennis, and this is a fight that we all wanted to see like a few years back, even before the Canelo fight, was even a thing, even before the Canelo fight was even a possibility or thought. So obviously everybody wanted to see Crawford potentially give Boots an opportunity, but he's really heated and animated about what he would have done to a Boots Ennis in a fight. I think at 147, yeah, Crawford would have cooked that boy. No offense to Boots. I like Boots. He's one of my favorite fighters, but Bud's experience and, his offensive pedigree is just different. He's on a different level. At this point in his career, you guys got to remember, Boots hasn't even reached his prime yet, in my opinion.
I know, but somehow every road in boxing right now keeps leading back to one man standing in the center of the chaos, smiling like a supervillain who already knows how the movie ends. That man is Terence Crawford.
And listen, man, we done already said we retired. We done already said we ain't got nothing left to prove in this sport. We done said that the money don't move us to go out there and box again. So why is y'all mentioning this Boots kid to us every time we pop out? We don't want to hear about no Boots. The only Boots we want to hear about is some Timberlands, some nice butters. Y'all really trying to get us to pop back outside. And I'm going to be real with you. I was never too strong on Terence Crawford. I thought Sean Porter could have beat.
Now, after all the debates, all the accusations, all the he ducked him arguments, all the Philly loyalty speeches, and enough podcasts screaming to light up an entire city block, Terence Crawford has basically thrown the challenge straight into Jaron Ennis' lap and said, if you beat Zayas, then stop whispering and say my name.
The question continues to rise now. Should the pound for pound king come out of retirement? Undefeated 5-division champion, 3-division undisputed champion, first ballot Hall of Famer, the greatest fighter of his generation and his era, Terence Bud Crawford, 42 wins, no loss, no draw, 31 wins by way of knockout. Should Terence Crawford, at 38 years of age, he'll be 39 in September, should Terence Bud Crawford come out of retirement and compete against the Phenom, as I refer to him as, former lineal unified WBA, IBF, Ring Magazine welterweight world champion, superstar boxer, who is undefeated, 35 wins, no loss, no draw, 31 wins by way of knockout, Jaron Boots Ennis.
And suddenly the boxing world got real uncomfortable. The funny thing about Terence Crawford is that the man has spent his entire career treating danger like a personal hobby. Most fighters negotiate risk the way normal people negotiate rent prices, but Crawford handles risk like somebody dared him years ago, and he still refuses to back down. The man moved through weight classes, collecting belts like trophies: lightweight, super lightweight, welterweight, junior, middleweight, and after a while it stopped feeling normal because every division ended the exact same way. Somebody talked confidently before the fight, then Crawford broke them down by round 6, and suddenly the commentators sounded worried for human survival. So when this whole Boots Ennis conversation exploded again, Crawford did not react like a fighter avoiding smoke. He reacted like somebody tired of hearing people say he fears the fire while he is standing inside the flames, completely calm. And honestly, the timing made the whole thing even crazier because this did not happen during some fake press conference with dramatic music and forced tension. This came from one of those chaotic boxing debates where everybody talks over each other like relatives arguing at a family dinner.
Who they are cancels out each other as far as height. You know, they both switch hitters, lift, and everything. All of that cancels out each other. So they are literally the same people pretty much. The only difference is Crawford done been in the big stage against big fighters oh so many times. And also with age, he didn't beat up his body, so his age is actually good. He got the grown man strength. He not just grown man strength, but he built on top of that. Like look at him at 135. He was a little scrawny dude. He wasn't a big dude. Now look at him. He ripped up everything. He's strong. So sure. I feel like he got everything, all the experience, all the knowledge. So I gotta go with Crawford.
Somewhere in the middle of all the chaos, Terence Crawford basically decided he was done hearing people dance around his name. Then came the line that poured gasoline on the entire situation, because Crawford was pretty much telling Boots Ennis, if you really want this smoke, then stop sending coded messages through podcasts and interviews and put my name on the billboard. And that is where everything gets interesting, because whether people love Crawford or hate him, there is one thing almost everybody in boxing agrees on: the man is dangerously competitive, not fake competitive like somebody posting motivational quotes after a loss. Real competitive, the kind where criticism actually gets under his skin enough to make him take a risky fight just to silence everybody. That is why this conversation matters. A lot of fans believe Crawford is only chasing legacy fights. Now they look at the possible mega fight with Saul Alvarez and assume he has no interest in risking everything against a younger, hungrier fighter like Boots Ennis. And honestly, on paper that logic makes sense. Crawford is already one of the greatest fighters of his era. He already became undisputed at 140. He already became undisputed at welterweight. He already dominated Errol Spence Jr. in the biggest performance of his career. The man already has a resume that looks unreal even by boxing standards.
Retired. And my thing is, if you felt this strongly about the Omaha Nightmare, aka Jaron Boots Ennis, why didn't you send an offer to Boots Ennis after you whooped Canelo ass? I'm just asking. You the A side now. But get this, you could have sent Boots an offer to go to 160, 168. You are the A side now. And respectfully, you are bored. Yeah, you sleeping at fights, gang. And let's be real, you owe the fans a reign as the face of boxing. I've already given you that title if you...
So why would Terence Crawford risk all of that against a dangerous younger fighter from Philly? Because Crawford might actually be addicted to proving people wrong. That is what separates him from everybody else. Most elite fighters eventually become businessmen first and fighters second, but Crawford still moves like the kid from Omaha nobody believed in, the one who still takes every ounce of doubt personally. And when people started saying Boots Ennis was the future while Bud was avoiding him, you Could almost feel Crawford taking that disrespect straight to heart. That random phone call that surfaced recently only threw more fuel onto the fire because it reminded everybody this fight was never some fantasy created by fans on social media. Real conversations actually happen. People keep acting like Crawford versus Ennis was never possible, but the truth is far more complicated. Crawford already fought under BLK Prime before and reportedly made massive money doing it, so when people say there was interest in paying him even more to fight Boots, that does not sound like some wild conspiracy theory anymore. Now, to be fair, context matters, because at that time Boots Ennis was still rising, talented, dangerous, explosive, and absolutely terrifying for the division, but still developing. Throwing a young fighter into the ring with Crawford back then was basically like handing a rookie driver a Formula One car in the middle of a thunderstorm and saying, "Good luck, champ." Even Boots fans understood the risk.
The boxing pundits and the public had to match you up with a Terence Crawford, right? Who was at the top of the game right now, because they couldn't see anybody else that could compete with him. So did you take that as a compliment?
When I was coming, I really wasn't too worried about who was this, who was that. Like,
you was focused on what you was trying to do.
I know my task in hand was coming up at that time. I was fighting at 47, so my task in hand was being undisputed. You know, and these guys was playing around a little bit, so you know I ain't get to become undisputed, but I was able to become unified, you know, lineal champion at 47. So that was you know good enough for me.
Is that frustrating to you? Because
Terence Crawford at welterweight was operating like the final boss of boxing. The man stopped Errol Spence Jr., who many fans believed was unbeatable. Before that, he broke down fighters with completely different styles, different strengths, and different strategies. Southpaw, orthodox, pressure fighter, pure boxer, counterpuncher. None of it seemed to matter because Crawford adapts faster than most fighters can even react. So when Boots Ennis' team reportedly went in another direction, a lot of people saw it as smart career management instead of fear. But this is where Crawford fans get frustrated. If the fight was truly offered and your side did not take it, then how can people later accuse Crawford of ducking the next pound-for-pound king waiting to take over? Right now, a lot of fans believe Boots sits in that position. He is explosive, athletic, confident, and dangerous enough to make trainers nervous just watching him. But Crawford fans see the situation differently. They see a man who already conquered the mountain, getting criticized by people who have not even started the climb yet. That is exactly why emotions around this whole conversation get
getting
so
to that
intense.
point that in his career where people are saying like, all right, he's got to fight somebody now. But at the end of the day, like, Boots is a talented fighter, but you guys got to understand Crawford has already done it all. You know, you don't want to put Boots, you know, who has so much potential and a bright future, in the ring with a guy like Terence Crawford. It just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense because Crawford was honestly like, let this kid be great. Don't put him in there with me because you're not going to get out of there alive. You know, I'm going to handle that business and retire the kid before he even gets his chance. So that's why Crawford is saying, dude, just stay away.
And then there is the Philly factor. Philadelphia treats boxing like religion mixed with pure chaos. Philly fighters represent the city with a level of pride that feels personal, almost territorial. Boots Ennis, Gilly Wallow, all those Philly connections naturally create loyalty, and they are always going to defend their guy. That is normal, but Terence Crawford supporters keep repeating the same thing. This is a fighter who has spent more than 15 years as a professional without turning down opponents, at least according to his own words, and honestly his career history backs it up. Crawford has consistently moved toward danger instead of running from it. Meanwhile, boxing fans online treat every negotiation like a crime investigation. Still, the Crawford versus Ennis storyline refuses to die because stylistically it feels like one of those legendary fights fans would debate for decades. The established master against the young destroyer. Experience versus explosiveness, patience versus hunger, precision versus pressure. And now Crawford is basically daring Boots to make the challenge public. That changes everything, because if Boots beats Xander Zayas and actually calls out Crawford directly, the pressure instantly becomes massive. Suddenly this is no longer fantasy matchmaking inside YouTube comment sections. Suddenly the demand becomes very real.
What do you think about that chatter about them actually, if they ever were to fight?
Crawford is, you know, is a man, you know, he showed it, you know, throughout his career, and then, you know, moving up to super middleweight and did what he did with Canelo, showed that he's, you know, the best in the world, one of the best of all times. He doesn't need to prove anything else, man. He could take care of business. He could beat most of the guys out there right now in boxing, but I think he's defending himself. He knows how to defend himself. He knows how to talk. but I don't see him getting back in the ring. I don't see him even doing it just to shut somebody up. I think he's...
Here is the part that makes this whole situation so fascinating. There is a strong argument that Terence Crawford would actually take the fight if the offer became serious enough, not because it is the safest move and not because it is the smartest business decision, but because Crawford genuinely seems driven by proving he is superior. People forget this about elite competitors. Criticism becomes fuel, doubt becomes motivation. The more people claim he is avoiding Boots Ennis, the more likely Crawford might feel the need to destroy that narrative himself. Calling Terence Crawford scared is like calling a shark nervous around water. It sounds ridiculous to people who followed his career, but Boots does not fight like somebody intimidated by reputations. Either he fights like a man who already believes he belongs at the top. Boxing history is filled with legends who looked untouchable until the next generation finally caught them at the perfect moment, because Father Time stays undefeated no matter how many titles somebody owns. Fighters have had moments against Crawford. People have won rounds, but eventually Crawford starts reading opponents like he downloaded the script in the middle of the fight, and once he adjusts, things usually fall apart very quickly for the other man.
That makes a whole lot of sense, and the fight that stylistically would be, oh my goodness, is a fight between Terence Crawford and Jaron Boots Ennis.
I don't think I think that's going backwards for Terence.
To that point, Jaron doesn't have the kind of accolades. He doesn't sell to the mass and all these. So this fight was perfect timing for both these guys.
That is exactly what happened against Errol Spence Jr. People spent years debating that fight. Entire YouTube channels were built around one question: who wins, Spence or Crawford? Then the fight finally happened, and Terence Crawford looked like a man fighting with cheat codes. That performance completely changed the way people talk about him historically, because after becoming undisputed in dominant fashion, the conversation shifted from is Bud elite to where does Bud rank all time, and that is where the debates start getting crazy. Some critics attack Crawford so aggressively you would think the man spent his career fighting random Uber drivers behind gas stations. Meanwhile, those same people praise fighters with half the accomplishments. At a certain point, it starts feeling personal. Crawford is already a multi-division champion, and the comparisons only make the discussions even bigger. People mention names like Floyd Mayweather Jr., Sugar Ray Leonard, Roy Jones Jr., and even Muhammad Ali. When talking about Crawford greatness, whether somebody agrees with those rankings or not, the fact that his name is even mentioned in those conversations says everything. Think about how insane that really is. A kid from Omaha fought his way into discussions with boxing immortals, and somehow people still talk about him like he owes the internet 12 more miracles before breakfast.
Errol Spence is my mans. He dominated Errol Spence. I thought he was crazy for getting in that ring and going against Canelo 3 weight classes up. He beat the shit out of Canelo. What y'all think we gonna do to Boots, man? Listen, I like Boots. I think the boy got talent. I think he a top 5, top 10 talent in boxing right now. But they all look like that before they stand in front of Terence Crawford. Y'all gonna make us hop in this ring and put a halt to this boy's career. Trying to let him have a promising career. But we gonna turn that boy into AB pretty soon.
Meanwhile, Boots Ennis is trying to build his own legacy while carrying impossible expectations, because that is the downside of being labeled the next great one. Fans stop treating you like a developing fighter and start treating you like the trailer for a superhero movie. And now, because Terence Crawford publicly dared him to say the name, every future interview Boots gives is going to feel uncomfortable until he answers it directly. That is the genius behind Crawford Challenge. He flipped the pressure. Instead of defending himself against accusations, he shoved the spotlight onto Boots. You want the fight, then say it clearly and honestly. Boxing needs more of this energy, not fake WWE-style screaming matches where fighters pretend to hate each other because promoters told them to look angry on Instagram. Real tension, real pride, real ego, real danger. That is what this is about. Whether the young lion is truly ready to take over or whether the old lion still rules the jungle. But in boxing, simple words can start entire wars, and now the whole sport is waiting to see what happens next. Will Boots beat Xander Zayas and finally call out Crawford directly? Will Crawford accept the challenge if the money and timing make sense? Will promoters stop acting like confused accountants long enough to make the fight happen? But one thing feels absolutely certain: Terence Crawford did not sound like a man hiding from anybody. He sounded like someone daring the next generation to finally step forward. And if that fight ever becomes official, the boxing world might completely lose its